ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and
check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, the #1 sports information program in America, the Breakfast Bankroll, with your host, the sports broker, Jeff Dawson.
Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the co-host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it is that time of the week for the Breakfast Bankroll with good friend and colleague, Mr. Scotty Webb, live from Tampa, as we, in about 1 hour's time, try to get everyone caught up. Our re-entry Monday was yesterday, but Tuesday, the lines are out. They've been out. The dust is settled for week 6 in college football, now week 7, and the NFL week 5, now week 6. And so some lines, grab some stuff. ECSI VIPs, you already got one play. I sent it out yesterday. It reminded me exactly to the T, Iowa State and Cincinnati. I saw it, I jumped. And I jumped after the flip, which was kind of surprising, but I'll talk to Scotty about it. I want to go over a ticket on WagerWire right now, a $107 parlay that has 3 legs already in, 2 left. And get Scotty's analysis here. Talk quickly about last night's exciting, it was really a great game in the NFL, as the Jaguars and Liam Cohen are now, 4-1. And I want to talk about the shift, not just in college, but in NFL. College, we were talking before the season started, we're talking Penn State, Clemson, Texas. And those teams are, at least 2 of them aren't going to make it, I think, but we'll talk about that. NFL, what were we talking preseason, pre-flop, especially in the AFC? The Bengals, the Ravens, the Chiefs. It's almost like a flip in these leagues. So I want to talk to Scotty about that. MLB, Phillies, thanks for playing. Your strength was your back end. And if you let a team like the Dodgers hang around, they're going to eventually bite you in the ass, and that's what they did. And I want to talk to Scotty about Trey Turner. I don't know if he was watching. That front foot is so out to lunch. He couldn't hit a curveball or slider with a tennis racket. And so the Phillies are getting ready to travel to L.A. as they sing there and get their golf plans ready for the winter. And then finally the Cubs, you put up a field goal, you get a 3-0 lead, and I know Scotty's not an Amanga fan, but they come back and they answer 3-3, and then eventually 4-3 and 7-3. So the Brewers have no rush. Going back to Wrigley, I don't know if there's any chance that the Cubs can muster a chance to get back to Milwaukee. There are 2 games on the docket today. But first and foremost, a shout out to our proud sponsors and partnerships. It's WagerWire. Head on over to Google Play, download that app. It is free. And of course, our good friend Terry Smith at AtlantaSteaksandSeafood.com. Yes, Andrew McGinnis, go Jays, go Jays, go Jays. Big game, go for the sweep tonight. AtlantaSteaksAndSeafood.com, steak, seafood, chops, appetizers, wines. Terry's got it all. Head on over to AtlantaSteaksAndSeafood.com. Without further ado, let's bring him in, Mr. Scotty Webb. What's up, Scott?
Baseball was up yesterday. I mean, I did watch the Jacksonville game. I didn't really. I watched the Cubs, but I told you before, like Imanaga is just not a good pitcher right now. He might have been good at one time, but he's not a good pitcher right now. And the Brewers took advantage of him. And then when you think about what the Dodgers did, you had think about this. The Phillies had Christopher Sanchez throw a really good game in his first time out. And then last night they got good starting pitching again. Luzardo pitched well, but they didn't score. And because they don't score, obviously you can't win baseball games. So the Dodgers hang around. In the first game they hit, a 3-run homer, get back in the game, and then they beat up the bullpen and win. And then, last night, they put too much pressure on the Phillies, and the Phillies couldn't get it done. So that game, that series is over. I mean, they're going to go to the Dodgers now, and the Dodgers, Yamamoto against what's his name? Nola. And Nola's like Imanaga right now. I mean, Nola was good at one time, but he's not getting good right now. So that game's going to be 10-1, something like that. So that game's over. That series is over. Dodgers move on, and the Cubs series is over. They got to win 3 straight against the Brewers. Watch them play. Do you think they can beat them once, let alone 3 straight times? And then the pitching matchups are all going to favor Milwaukee. Milwaukee still has Peralta they can throw again. So, I think Milwaukee's in a good spot there. Now, I don't think Milwaukee matches up to the Dodgers. So Dodgers move on. Dodgers World Series and play whoever's going to play there from the the American League, and then Dodgers win it. But whatever, it is what it is. I mean, it's baseball. It's the way it works. And then I was, what I was happy about with the game last night was you saw the Chiefs come down and tie the game and then take the lead. And they left, a minute 45 on the clock, and Jacksonville went and scored and won the game. And I thought that was really a telling point in that I think the Chiefs era run could be ending.
Well, again, the NFL, my long-winded intro between college and NFL. I mean, just look at the AFC, Scotty. If I told you today that the Ravens are still favored to win the division, most people would laugh at me. I know they got the Rams. So if you want the Ravens to win that division, and I don't think it's that crazy, they're big. They're 5-point dogs at home against the Rams. Lamar isn't walking through that door again this week, so there's a good possibility. I don't think they'll give up 40, but they give up 40 every week, it seems. But my point is, it's a good possibility they could be 1-5 going into the bye. 11 games left. That team can rattle off 9-2 with a healthy Lamar. They need more pieces in the back end there, obviously on the defensive side, to stay competitive there. But my point is the preseason thought process. Chiefs, Ravens, Bengals. I mean, the AFC is a mess. I mean, obviously the Bills are sitting in the catbird seat. But and listen, I'm not saying here come the Patriots. Look at their next 8 games. They're going to be favored in 7 of the 8 games, Scotty. The only game they're not going to be favored in, and it'll be a slight underdog, is at Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I look. It's amazing how the NFL puts the schedules together, and teams on the come get a break that way. And then the teams like. The better teams have to play the better teams all the time. and that's the way it should be. To be honest, it should be that way. And I like what they do, and that gives those teams a chance. So yes, I agree 100% with what you're saying, and we'll see how it all shakes out in the end. This will be a weird AFC kind of thing, like the it's kind of like baseball. The American League is just not good. I thought that the top of the American League was decent. But when you start matching them up against the top of the National League, it's just not even there. Like, the Padres aren't in it anymore and stuff like that. But if you put the Padres in there and you put, you can even have the Cubs and the Brewers and those teams. Those teams are still better than the teams in the American League. They're better. So if they were to match up to, who's playing today, like the Yankees and the Blue Jays, you don't think that the Padres and the Cubs might be favored to win those series? They probably would be, So that's what I'm saying is they don't match up. And in the AFC, you really have the cream of the crop of the teams in the AFC, but they're just not that anymore, or not that this year. So that makes room for teams like the Chargers and the Broncos and the Patriots on the come and stuff like that. So we'll just see kind of how it shakes out. But then also, you got to, I don't know, the Steelers are going to be there again at the end. They just always are. And then they're going to be there again this year just because of how they got off to a good start, and the Ravens haven't. And the Bengals and the Browns are terrible. So, it is what it is, I guess.
I said all year, sooner or later, the light bulb's going to come on. July 1st, August 1st, September 1st, October 1st, I guess was the time. The Dodgers, when the dust settles, we're going to say it was always the Dodgers. And I got a ticket here. Go to wagerwire.com/marketplace, graphs, odds. And Scotty, I want to share this ticket with you. It's a 5-legged parlay, $107 invested with a payout of $555,862. So you say, holy shit, 3 legs have already cashed. Edmonton Oilers, Western Conference champs. OKC Thunder, finals champs. The Florida Gators, NCAA champs. 2 legs left. Dodgers World Series champs and the Detroit Lions Super Bowl champs. And current payout right now, the cash out is $5,812. And if I change this page now and I go here, this is the original. The actual value right now on WagerWire is $14,705. You might want to sell off some shares here and try to collect some cash. I would not obviously be selling this ticket, as the Dodgers are 1 win away from moving on to potentially facing off the Brewers to see who gets to the World Series. Scotty, play the game with me right now. You invested $107. Dodgers look like they're going to get to the NLCS, CS that is. Thoughts on this ticket as it stands right now on October 7th?
Well, I don't think you have to do anything yet. The reason I say that is because obviously if you were to sell the ticket now, you're going to shortchange yourself, because the reality is the Dodgers are going to move on to the next. Like you said, they're going to move to the championship series. Now, I will say the Brewers have played them pretty tough in the past in the playoffs. But and the Brewers will have home field edge in because they had the better record. But having said that, the pitching matchups don't favor the Brewers at all. I think that's going to put them in a kind of an awkward spot where I think the Dodgers will probably be, obviously favored to win that series. So even though that the Brewers will be at home. So anytime that you're the favorite, not that underdogs don't win, but as a favorite, you don't want to sell your ticket. So my opinion would be is that you don't have to do anything. You just kind of just let time take care of itself, and and see what happens. The Dodgers. That's a World Series ticket, right? So
Dodgers World Series and Lions Super Bowl.
so the Dodgers to win the World Series is probably as good a bet you could have because they're the best team in baseball right now. They're the best team playing in baseball right now. I know that the Brewers are beating up on the Cubs, but to beat up on the Dodgers is a different problem. We talked about it yesterday. Look who's coming out of the bullpen for the Dodgers. Their starting pitchers are coming out of the bullpen for the Dodgers. So it's not, just bullpen pieces coming out. Trinan came out and gave up a whole bunch of runs. So what they do, they got to bring in Sasaki, and he comes in and shuts the door. So I think you're going to see a lot of that as you go. I think Glass now will come out, and I think, Kershaw hasn't pitched out of the bullpen yet, but I think they've been waiting on him to come out of the bullpen to pitch at home. So I think you'll see Yamamoto and then Kershaw probably the next game. But as this kind of folds out and kind of plays out, this ticket is only going to gain value because the Dodgers have a really good shot at making. I mean, I got to win, but I wouldn't be selling it yet. And each step of the way that should increase the value of that ticket. You know what I mean? Like they're just that one more step closer to gaining the World Series. And like if they win the National League, which they should, and then you put them into the World Series, they're going to be favored in the World Series too. Yeah, that's only going to increase that ticket. They're going to, the sports book's going to sit there and go, I want to sell this. I want you to get out of this ticket because it's possible the Lions could win the Super Bowl. So if you had 4 of the 5 legs with the Lions, which has a great opportunity to win, depending upon health and how they come through, because last year their health was a big issue. So they're playing as good as any football team in the National Football League. So I just sit there and wait. At this point, I don't have to do anything with this ticket. I can just sit there and wait. And if things start to get nasty for the Dodgers, then I can, cash it out. But I think this has a good spot here. And if the Dodgers win, then what's going to be the value of that ticket? How much more is it going to go up to try to get them to get out of the Lions? And as the Lions keep winning, it's going to keep growing. So it's going to be one of those spots where you might hang on to this ticket until sometime in January when you figure out, that the Lions make the playoffs and kind of where they are and what their matchups are. And then you decide what to do with it then, or hedge or do whatever you want to do.
No, great breakdown there. Just off the top of my head, I think the Dodgers will probably be at least minus 180. My guess is against the Brewers. They'll be 2-1 plus against anyone in the American League. If my memory serves me correct, I still think the Jays and Seattle will have home field advantage over the Dodgers. The Dodgers didn't have the greatest regular season. They'll have a home field against Detroit, and I think what Yankees and Dodgers.
Yankees, Blue Jays had the same exact record.
Okay, so I think
so. The Blue Jays won the division based on tiebreakers.
All right, so I don't think the Dodgers will have much of a home field advantage. And the Lions traveled to Kansas City. Kansas City was in this spot 2 weeks ago as kind of a must-win against the Ravens, and they destroyed them. Now, short week, come back to face a Lions team that's licking its chops. Last time they traveled to Kansas City was a couple of years ago, home opener, the first game of the year, and they were 6-point dogs, and they didn't only just cover, they won outright. So again, wagerwire.com, go to the marketplace, check out these tickets. There are a lot that are available to be for sold there. So this is a great ticket. We'll be talking a lot about this ticket as this progresses here. Let me just pull this off here as I did here. Scotty, I'm going to give you a homework assignment. I want you to go back and look at the tape. I noticed that I had last night at bowling. I'm watching Trey Turner, who hasn't gotten hit in the playoffs. Watch his front foot. He couldn't hit a slider or a curveball with a tennis racket right now. His front foot, this kid is so lost. And by the way, hats off to Freeman, the scoop of the year, as the as the Phillies would have tied that one up there. And you know what I take from the Phillies right now, and you're gonna a lot of people in Philadelphia are gonna laugh at me. The window is closed. You got no Wheeler coming back next year. Schwarber can walk. Harper is just a shell. I mean, hasn't gotten a clutch base hit in forever. And Trey Turner, JT Realmuto, hey, great regular season, guys. Your front end is still good. Your back end is amazing. But when your manager sits there and you got 6 amazing innings out of Lozano, and the top of the 7th he gives a leadoff hit, and Freddie Freeman's on double deck, and you're saying, all right, I need Lozano to muscle through this so he can at least get to Freeman, and it just blows up. And they got the scouting report, whether he's tipping pitches or not, on Strom. Listen, I'm not saying the manager was sleeping in the dugout, but the manager must have been at the beer line because, hey, you did what you had to. They couldn't score for 6 innings. I'm not wheeling them out for the 7th. I'm going to the pen, Scotty.
Well, I'll just say it this way. Like, I see so many people talk about this on Twitter that drives me insane. That they sit there and go, well, this guy's tipping pitches. They all knew what was coming. They all blah, 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 all this stuff. And the manager didn't do this. The manager didn't do that. The manager didn't do this. You know what happened? How many runs did the Philadelphia Phillies score? 0. They had 0 runs. And if you're not going to score runs, then it doesn't really matter what the manager does or doesn't do to a certain degree, because he's not going to go out there and score runs. He's going to try to prevent more from coming and do the best he can. But you're really putting the manager in a spot where, he's only going to do the best he can do. Your offense needs to be competitive. And, the Philadelphia offense wasn't competitive. It was maybe in the first game where they scored 3 runs, but they scored 3 runs in 1 inning, and that was it. That they didn't score in any other inning. So they've been competitive in 1 inning in 2 games. That's not good enough. And I get it. They had that stuff at the end of the game where they got a couple guys on base, and and Castellanos hits the goofy double that made it 4-3 there, But the reality of this game in baseball is and I'm going to say it this way: watch the Brewers play. The Brewers don't give up outs. They hit the ball. They put the ball in play, and they get a guy on base or 2 guys on base every inning, and then all of a sudden a base hit and they score a run, and then when that's offense. That's the way offense kind of works. Now, I know 45% of all runs are scored off of home runs this year, in Major League Baseball. But, and even the Brewers scored 7 runs yesterday. All 7 came off of home runs yesterday. But think about that. How many times say Yankees hit 3 home runs and they score 3 runs? The Brewers scored 7 runs on 3 home runs. So they had guys on base. And that's the key. The key to this game is guys getting on base and putting pressure on your defense and the pressure on the pitcher. And if you can't do it, then we can talk about all we want to about what managers' decisions are, but they're not out there scoring the runs. So I get it. You still got to come up with choices and decisions, and you can critique that, and probably rightfully so. But to me, it makes no sense. And all these people on Twitter don't know what they're talking about. They just don't. Every game, these guys are not tipping pitches. They're not. So yes, there are Major League Baseball pitchers that have some functionality of their windup or their motion or their hand movements or whatever that will tip a pitch. But that's it's not the same. I saw something on Twitter the other day that said Judge was on second base, and every time he would fly his arm up, it would be a slider coming in, and every time he didn't, it wasn't. I'm like, you guys are drunk. They're not even giving signals. How's he going to read the signal? Now, maybe what he's saying is they saw the ball in his hand and he gripped and whatever. by the time that the so let me explain it this way. When these guys are throwing as hard as they throw, and every one of them throws 95 plus anymore. And now, you saw Jacob Mizorowski yesterday throw 104, and the guy that came in for the Cubs, Placidos or whatever his name is, he was throwing over 100. To hit that pitch, the batter has to start his process before the pitcher releases the ball. Now, what I'm going to tell you is that if you've never done that before, it's the most intimidating thing as a batter to do, because typically when you're you got your bat in your hand, and I'm trying to do you got your bat in your hand and you're ready, and you start your process by either coming back and coiling back on your back hip, or you're raising your leg, or whatever that mechanism is to get that body weight coming forward to hit the ball. You're going to be late if you don't start before the pitcher releases the ball. So when the pitcher's starting to do all this stuff, you're starting to move. That's when you start. And by the time you put your foot down, that ball has got to be right where it's supposed to be so that you can spin on it and hit it. So the timing mechanism of that is one of the most difficult things in the world to do. So think about that, and then think, oh, Aaron Judge is out there flashing his arm up there, and the batter's watching for this guy's arm to see if it's a slider, and then he's going to take his motions and step into the bat and hit it. That's not the way it works. It's too complicated of a process in terms of the split seconds that the batter has to react to the pitch. I wish I still had that video that shows exactly how much time it takes for the pitch to get to the plate, because it's milliseconds. And when you're the batter trying to recognize a pitch, or trying to determine whether to swing at a pitch, and that's why you see in Major League Baseball, that's why it's so difficult, because a pitch will start someplace and end in another place. And when you are swinging, you're swinging at where you think it's going to be, because you think it's a slider, or you think it's a curveball, or you think it's a whatever, and then it moves to a different place and you swing and you miss. It's very, very difficult because of the speed and velocity of which they throw, and the timing in which you have to start that swing. It's not like Little League. It's not like high school where you can basically start your swing as the ball's coming to you, and you'll be all right. But not in the big leagues. In the big leagues, you better start that swing as he still has the ball in his hand, and then you have to make that decision that as soon as he releases it, whether you're actually going to swing or not. And all this other stuff is nonsense. It just is. It's total nonsense. Now, if before he starts his motion, what's coming, that's different. Because he's in there doing whatever with his hands, and what's coming. That's pitch tipping, and you'll know what to expect. And what the movement will be, and then when you start your swing, you'll know where the ball is going to go. So that gives you an advantage as a hitter. But as the most part, all these guys on Twitter, and it's not this. It's the same thing. How many times do you see these critics that say, well, the football coach should have done this, or this football player made a mistake and he shouldn't have done that? Okay, get out there and do it. Right? Get out there and run around with 250-pound linebackers that can run 4.5 second 40-yard dashes and lift, 400 pounds. And then you tell me that you can do what they do. You can't. So all these guys that critique all that stuff, they just, it's all nonsense.
Before I go, I'm going to go over to here. I want you to break down a game for us here. But the amazing thing about the Brewers, I think, is first inning, strikeout, single, 3-run homer to tie the game. So no guys on, 2 outs. As you said, they put the ball in play. That's what I always coach. guys, just put the ball in play. Make them make a play. Well, when you lead
Well,
off,
remember the World Series last year, Jeff. What did the Dodgers say about the Yankees? All we have to do is hit it. We'll just put the ball in play and make them field it. And they knew they couldn't, and they didn't, and the Dodgers won. And that's that's the whole thing. Is baseball is a complete sport, right? You got to pitch it, you got to hit it, and you got to catch it. And then you got to throw it. And if you can't do all of it, then it is what it is. And you see the Yankees do that shit all the time. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but if you can't go field the ball, you're not going to win these games. You're not. And everybody was all hyped up about how the Cubs play defense. Well, I watched them play defense yesterday. They booted the ball around a little bit. Didn't hurt them, but I mean, the reality becomes is, it's an interesting sport. You can be a worse team and still win, but the only way that happens is if you pressure your opponent, and the Brewers do a good job of that.
well, both their 3-run homers came with 2 outs and no guys on. That was my point. Is they did it in the first inning, and then they did it, I think, in the 5th inning or 4th inning. 2 out, no guys on, and 2 more guys get on, and the 3-run homer by Cheerios. So again, you got to get 3 outs in an inning, not 2 outs, Cubs. I put this game out. Game on paper, guys, if you want to go follow us. Me and Scotty do a lot of work here on this. This is the game on Friday. I think this is I know Rutgers and Washington are playing Fresno State, Colorado State. This is the intriguing matchup, as I think South Florida is now 25th in the country. We remember their start to the year, their stunning upset that they had to start. 4-1 versus 5-0. North Texas basically opened up at a pick'em overnight yesterday. South Florida went to a 1.5 point favorite, but it's been bouncing back and forth. Pick'ems -1, +1.5. I wanted to bring this game up here before you talked about a few games here today. Your thoughts on South Florida and North Texas, Scotty?
Yeah, I did an analysis on this game, and I have an opinion on this game. So I think. So how many people have seen North Texas play? Probably nobody. How many teams have seen South Florida play? Probably everybody, because they beat Florida, right? And they beat who was the other team?
Boise State,
right? They beat those 2 teams, and then they go, oh, they got the greatest quarterback in the world because he's like a halfback, fullback kind of guy, or whatever. So I think everybody knows, and everybody's like, and then South Florida became the odds-on favorite to be the tier 5 or whatever it is, guys that make the playoffs, for the college football. So here's what I'm going to tell you is, don't look past North Texas. I think North Texas wins this game. I think South Florida going to play in Texas is a problem. So in terms of how I broke this game down, let's look at this. Let's look at the analysis on games on paper for a second. So starting at the top, right, EPA per play, you got plus 0.16 or 0.18. What is it? Yeah, 16 for South Florida, and it's 0.27 for North Texas. Now, when you go back and you look at this, I got to break it down. I'll get my other sheet out. So North Texas strength of schedule is 130. They ain't played nobody. But South Florida's now is ranked 69, something like that. Where is it? South Florida. Yeah, no, 39. They rank 39. So there's a big discrepancy. So when you see these numbers, there's got to be some sort of hey, you got to take North Texas. They ain't played anybody, and kind of condense those numbers back, right? Because it's less meaningful. But what isn't less meaningful, yards per point margin. Now, that's not going to show up on here. That's something that I watch. Yards per part margin, number 1 in the country is North Texas. So what does that mean exactly? That means that they are much less likely to go down and kick field goals, and they are way more likely to go down and score touchdowns. and or stop the opponents from scoring touchdowns and have their opponents kick field goals. Number one in the country. And South Florida is 71st. And this great quarterback for South Florida, his QBR, he ranks 66th in the country. The quarterback for North Texas, and I forget what his name is, but he's a transfer from SMU. So it's not like he's somebody you haven't heard of. He's a good quarterback. His number is 30th and 38th. And turnover margin, they get almost 2 turnovers to the good per game for North Texas. So North Texas is getting a lot of opportunities to score points. They got a great quarterback that works for them. And they're a very efficient football team. So keep that in mind as we go over these numbers and break this down. So let me pull it back up over here. So where I think, so kind of after going through this 100 times now, we start at the top and we go, hey, EPA per play is 0.27 versus 0.16. So that's 0.11 advantage to North Texas. Well, if you take that strength of schedule out of it, you take 30% off of it, say, for example. Well, that's not a whole big edge for North Texas, but it is an edge. And then yards per play, they're about even. Available yards there in that middle there is all green for North Texas. That means that they are more explosive. They have big plays. They score in bunches at times. And success rate, they are 20th, and USF is only 70th. So big advantages there. So the next thing, Jeff, if you look down on the bottom right and the bottom left, it says EPA per drive. And then you look at EPA per drive for South Florida, 43rd, and for North Texas is 14th. But look at the number, 1.68 advantage for North Texas to 0.87. You subtract the two, it's double the advantage for North Texas. And where does it come from? Well, look at their offense, 1.29 against the defense of minus 64. So the defense for South Florida is pretty good, but it's not good enough in this spot. And then you look at it the other side and you go, hey, the offense for South Florida is 0.24. Look at the defense for North Florida, minus 0.39. So okay, what that means is North Texas is going to match up against South Florida's offense and stop them on a drive per drive basis. And when you look at it the other way, North Texas still has the ability to score points on offense. And then if you look at it, the bottom grouping there where it says North Texas on offense versus defense, passing wise, they match up. You got 27th in the country against 25th in the country. But look at rushing. It's 15th to 54, available yards 13 to 53, starting field position. North Texas is second in the country against 91. So as they start to move the football, they don't have to go as far to score the points. So when I started doing it and I kind of looked at it, I looked at it and then I had Grok write a formula. So Grok does some stuff for me, and he's got North Texas 38-31, and really what it comes down to is if USF cannot get turnovers in this game, they're not going to stay up. Well, I mean, they can score, but they're not going to stay up with North Texas. So I like the idea that North Texas is an underdog. I hope the heck people still get the heck out of South Florida, but I think North Texas is the right side here.
All righty. Any games that you would like to break down before we ship off till Thursday?
Well, there's some key games maybe that we should probably look at. One, so Kenny White's numbers, Jeff, for example, and his model, right, that he pulls out, and this is a perfect example of some of the stuff that I think we should talk about. Ohio State plays Illinois this week, right? Kenny White has 31-21 Ohio State. And then Bill Connolly, he does the ESPN numbers, SP plus numbers, and he has the score 31-19. Let me ask you a question. How many times has Ohio State allowed 10 or more points this year? The answer is 0. So how's Illinois going to score 21 and 19 points in this game? They're not. So you gotta start with the idea that those models are just models, and they're not models other than going off of what the defenses have done. They're just models going off of power rankings and where they think they are and all that kind of stuff, which is fine to get a spread kind of number that they're looking for. But the reality becomes, if you're really looking for a points in this game, that's not how you do it. So here's what you really need to look at. Look at that game. I see you got it up there. If I click on it, and you have Ohio State, look at Ohio State's offense versus the defense. So that first category you got there, all that purple, that's the defense for Illinois. And then obviously Ohio State's got some green in there and a little bit of white. They're pretty good when it comes to offense to the defense. So there's an advantage for Ohio State's offense over the defense. And we all know that Ohio State's offense has been good, but it hasn't been to where it's going to be at the end of the season. At the end of the season, they're going to be elite on offense. So if you slide it down just a little bit more, and we look at and we look at it for net EPA per drive, you look at it from that perspective, you have where the advantage is for Illinois. Illinois has a good offense. They rank 45th on offense, and they get a 0.56 EPA per drive. But the defense is ranked 6th, minus 1.18. That means that they're going to struggle to score 10 points because they can't move the football. And if you look at where they have the advantage, it's not running, it's throwing the ball. They are 0.30 on throwing the ball, 18th in the country. Well, that matches up to Ohio State. They rank 8th in the country, minus 0.31. So you have a negative effect there. What Ohio State does is whatever that is good for Illinois, they take all of it away. So then you look at the offensive side for Ohio State, 1.23 ranked 17th. The defense for Illinois, 108th. 108th. They're not going to stop them. So this game is going to be another. When Brock and I put it out on here, this game. Let me pull it up. I'm looking at it for a second. I just did it a second ago. Ohio State. The predicted score is Ohio State 38-7, and I agree with that. I think Ohio State goes up there. I think Ohio State beats the crap out of Illinois. I think Illinois struggles, and I think Ohio State's defense shuts them down. So when you start to think about it from that perspective, even if they did get 20 points, 38-20 is still a cover for Ohio State. Illinois has no answer for Ohio State's offense, and Illinois' offense really doesn't match up to what Ohio State can do on defense. So I like Ohio State. I think people should be betting Ohio State minus the 14 points, and you go from there. So that was one of them that I thought was an interesting spot. And what was the other ones? Another one, I don't really like those to go over. Let's go over.
Why don't you go to Indiana and Oregon?
Okay. So Indiana and Oregon, that game, when I looked at it, I don't like it. I just have this thing. I don't like Indiana. I don't like that head coach. And the reason I don't like the head coach, not because he's got a good head coach, but I think he's an asshole. And he came in last year bringing all those kids in and told everybody how great they were, and they beat up all the Sisters of the Poor, and then they played the good teams and lost. And this year they're doing the exact same thing, right? They go out there and they beat up the Sisters of the Poor, and now they're going to play a good team, and they're they started 9.5-point underdogs. Now they're 7.5-point underdogs. But on games on paper, when you look at it, they match up pretty well. There's not a whole lot of things there that Oregon's going to be actually better at than what Indiana is. Now, having said that, both of these teams haven't played hardly anybody. And when you start to think about what Oregon's done, they beat Penn State. Okay, well, yeah, UCLA beat Penn State. So does that really help their resume? I don't know if it does or doesn't. I know it's an environment that they played in that Indiana hasn't played in yet. Well, they're going to play in it on when they go out there and play in Oregon. So I think that's a problem in itself. These Big Ten teams traveling out west. So I think that's a problem for Indiana. And so when you look at it, Indiana has an EPA overall edge slightly. They have a yards per play edge. They have a success margin edge. They have a turnover margin edge. They have a plays per game edge. They have a strength of schedule edge. I mean, they got edges everywhere for Indiana. But I think the line's probably good around 7. That's where I'm having a problem with the bet at this game. So I think 31-24 is about what this game should be. I think Oregon wins this game. I think Indiana stays competitive in the game, and anything above 7, I think might be a pretty good bet for somebody. That's just what I think.
Let's go over this last one here till Thursday. Big rivalry game. Some people will say the wrong team is favored here. The bust of the year has to be Arch Manning at this point. The gift that they get is I don't think Mateer will be back for Oklahoma. I will put Oklahoma's defense up with anyone in the country, including Ohio State. Matt Patricia's done an amazing job. This Oklahoma defense has been off the rails this year. Now the Red Rifle rivalry, they call this one. Texas opens up as a 3-point favorite. Season on the line again here for Texas. I don't think they're going anywhere. Thoughts on Oklahoma, Texas, Scotty?
Well, I think you're spot on. So if you take that, slide it down just a little bit, and look at EPA per drive down there at the bottom at the left, right there. If you look at defense for Oklahoma, number 1 defense, and they're going to go against the 98th ranked offense. That's what it's going to be. And then you have Texas's number 11th defense going to go against the offense number 66. Okay, so then you just have to figure out. Well, you got to remember this is at the Cotton Bowl, so this isn't necessarily a home field edge for Texas. I mean, this is like it's supposed to be a neutral site, and I guess the way I would see this is I don't think anybody's got an advantage in this game other than both defenses. I would play under the 42. I think it's 42 and 42 and a half. Is that what the number is?
42 and a hook, yeah.
Yeah, I think you play that game under 42. Bill Connelly's got a 24-17 Oklahoma, and Kenny White has it 26-20 to Texas. If I were going to be looking at it from a side perspective, I think there's a reason that Oklahoma is not the favorite. And I think that that means that Texas probably is a legit favorite. And maybe they win the game by a field goal or something. But I can't see either one of these teams scoring a lot of points against these defenses that are out there. I think it's going to be a much, much smaller game in terms of that. Now, I will tell you, there's, I looked at the Alabama-Missouri game, and it's a hard game to figure out. But I like the Alabama side, Jeff. And the reason I like the Alabama side is because Missouri hasn't played anybody yet. Missouri hasn't even played an away game yet. So Missouri's strength of schedule is like 120 something. And, Alabama's played some good quality opponents. I like the Alabama side there. And in that Georgia-Auburn game, I can't figure out why Georgia is such a small favorite. I can't. I think Georgia matches up extremely well against what Auburn can't do, and the things that Georgia can do, Auburn doesn't match up to what Georgia to try to stop them. I think Georgia wins that game by more than the spread.
I'll be back in about 15 minutes with Andrew McGinnis talking NHL. Opens up tonight. He'll talk some pucks, props, and thoughts. He'll talk about his Blue Jays there as they get ready for a potential sweep in the Bronx. Me and Scotty will be back Thursday and Friday. Set your dials to 9:15, as we'll have some in-pocket plays on Thursday and Friday. Get set for the NFL game. And then, of course, actually, there is actually college football tomorrow as well. Closing thoughts, Scotty.
I think it'll be one of these spots where I think the Yankees might win these two games at home, and then go back and lay a dud in Toronto. But I don't think that series is over. In that series, I think Detroit at home is a lot harder to beat than Seattle is in Seattle. It wouldn't surprise me to see Detroit beat Seattle and win that series. Not that I'm rooting for that, because Detroit has no offense. I would at least rather have some offense. And then when you start to think about starting pitchers, they don't have starting pitchers past Skubal. So what's going on there. What I'm hoping for, and I know your next guest isn't gonna like what I got to say, but I'm hoping Yankees at least win the next two, and it goes back because pitching wise and so forth, Toronto's been good, and offensively they've kicked the crap out of the Yankees, but the next series wise and then matching up to what the Dodgers can do, I don't know, I still think the Yankees are the best team in the American League, and I thought that the Yankees or the Red Sox were the best team in the American League. So I was hoping one of those teams would move on. It's going to be really hard for the Yankees to do that. And then, the Wednesday night, I looked at those football games. I'm not really too happy about those two, but I did like some of the Thursday stuff. Friday stuff, there was a spot there too we'll get into, and then we'll get into some more of the Saturday games. And certainly I'll have games I've bet on already by then. So
Looking MLB for me, and from a market perspective, Rodon versus Bieber. I'm just going to say this out loud. I think the Yankee number looks short to me, which means Bieber and the Jays could be live here. I too think that you got Schlichter if they can get there tomorrow, who was never going to match his performance that he did against the Red Sox there in the final game there. But the number looks a little short to me. It's a 7.5. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw some runs there as well. Seattle, Detroit, Gilbert and Seattle minus 130 opened at 131. Here's the funny thing. 1-1 series, basically a pick 'em right now. Seattle opened up minus 175, 170 series price. Now you talk about a sense of urgency. Let's be realistic here. Seattle's going to win today because if they lose, they're down 2-1, and Detroit's still at home for Game 4. And if they somehow win that game and get back to Game 5, they're facing Cy Skubal. So I do lean Seattle here, which doesn't mean squadouche, because the home teams is starting to kick some ass here again. As you said all year, home teams are winning, guys. Home teams are winning. But the sense of urgency and must win is on the Seattle side. Obviously, Yankees are, because if they lose, they're 3-Q and they're golfing in Aruba tomorrow. But real sense of urgency's got to be on that Seattle side today, Scotty.
Oh, I agree with that. 100% agree with that. I don't know how the players will feel or the manager will manage those games. I know this. In that American League series, if the Yankees get swept, I don't think Aaron Boone comes back. I think they'll get rid of him. It's one thing to make the playoffs and lose every year, but the reality is you got to figure out how to get by that. You got to get past those things and manage your situation better and and manage your lineups better and do different things. So I think there's a lot riding in the Yankee series in terms of Aaron Boone even. So in the American League, the other side, I don't like like the Seattle's not a juggernaut on the road, and Detroit's a really good home team. So I kind of think I think Seattle's up against it. And I agree with you that if they don't come in with a bunch of urgency and do a bunch of stuff now, offensively they should be a little better than what Detroit is. But Detroit plays better at home. Um, I just I just don't understand. I shouldn't say understand; it's the wrong word. I don't like how Detroit, but they've done it all year long, has a right-handed, left-handed lineup, and their best hitters are left-handed, and when they don't play in the games, it's hard for them to win. But if you look at their numbers against left-handed pitchers, they're pretty good. So there's the guys that face lefties have done a good job. So it's mix and match. I think AJ Hinch has done an awesome job as a manager for the Detroit Tigers, I guess is what I'm saying. And I think the Mariners, this is the first time for their manager going through it, because last year it was Scott Service and this year it's Dan, whatever his name is. And this first time, and I don't know how he's going to respond or get his team to respond in a backs against the wall situation that we think. Maybe they don't think so. I think that the pressure's on them, not on Detroit. I think Detroit, when you win one on the road, that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to win, and then they were trying to steal another one. They could have won two on the road, and then it could have been all hell breaks loose, right, for Detroit against Seattle. So I think Detroit's going to at least win another one of these games at home, and if they win today, they're in the catbird seat, because the problem with Detroit is, who are you going to throw? I mean, I get it. You got Casey Mize that can pitch, but what else? I mean, and then Flaherty, right? And Flaherty pitched halfway decent, but Flaherty's like Imanigan, and Flaherty's like Nola. They're going to get hit, so you need to have offense against that, especially when your opponent pitchers are halfway decent. I don't know what you're going to get out of Brian Wu for Seattle. He's coming back after being hurt and all that stuff. I don't think he's pitching today. I think he's pitching tomorrow.
I don't think he's on the roster, Scott, for the series.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot. Yeah, he's not. You're right. He's not. So I don't know who they're going to pitch. Hancock. Put Hancock out there and watch him get rocked. Bryce Miller. He's the same kind of guy like Nola and Monaghan and all them other guys, right? I mean, those were good pitchers at one time, all of them. But when you're in a bad spot and you're getting hit, you get hit, and that's the problem. You just saw it. Monica doesn't have an out pitch, so you don't have an out pitch, you get crushed. Nola's in that spot. These guys are gonna get hit, and if they get hit in the playoffs, they don't match up to the other team's pitchers, and I think that's kind of where I'm going. Is I don't know what to think of this Detroit. Detroit at home is good for me. I like Detroit at home. They play good at baseball at home. The crowds are good for them there. I thought Seattle's crowd was good for them in Seattle, but they're so dependent on the big dumper to do a bunch of stuff. And I'm not saying he's not had a good series, but it's just. We'll see. Well, I guess we'll see how it goes. But yes, I agree 100%. Seattle is in the back on the wall. Seattle needs to win Seattle needs to win the series there. But they need to avoid Scoobo at all costs.
Yeah, and I'll close with your thoughts on Yankees if they get swept. Listen, I know George is high above courtside right now and just rolling his eyes. And they've been saying Boone's gone forever, just like every time the Dodgers lose, Dave Roberts is gone forever, but he's still sticking stand. Here though, the thought process is you're going to get a team next year with Cole back. You got Max Fried, you got Rodon, you got Slick there, Schlitzter, and whoever. I'm pushing all in. Short porch in right field. I'm bringing Schwarber over. I know Bellinger's not the answer. You lost Soto last year. I'm going to have that 1-2 punch of Judge and Schwarber, and say, all right, come at it. I got the pitching staff. Well, hopefully Devin Williams bounces back. But if that's what I got to do, that's what I'm going to do, Scotty.
Yeah, no, I agree. The Yankees can spend as much money as anybody, and they haven't been for years now. So since George Steinbrenner's been gone, so it's kind of an amazing thing there. Now, I'm not suggesting that they're going to go out and spend the world, but at the same time, my opinion is if I think this is it for Boone if he doesn't get past this series. Like if he gets swept, if they get swept out of this series 0-3, I think that's enough. I mean, you've seen enough. I mean, he's been there, 13 years now, 10 years, something like that. He's been there forever. And what does he want? It's, and I'm not suggesting he's a bad manager, because granted, in Boston, in New York, in Los Angeles, some of these places, it's hard to be a manager because of all the other stuff that goes on around your team and the ownership and the money and, all the stuff that happens in the media and everything. It's hard. So he's done a good job with managing that part of it and keeping his players able to focus on games. Most of the time he takes all the heat and is getting beat up and all that stuff. And I think Brian Cashman likes that. But you got to win games, and you got to win these games, because the Yankees don't care. I mean, they care about winning, American League championships. They don't really care about anything else. They're there to go to the World Series. And if you're not going to the World Series, get out.
All right, guys, we'll be back in about 10 minutes. From myself, Jeff Dawson, the EC Sports Invest, the one and only Scotty Webb at Webb 20 MLB. Myself and Scott will be back on Thursday and Friday, 9:15. Set the dial. Otherwise, stay tuned. We'll be back in a few minutes.